Namaskar and Jai Shri Ram. Today is a very, very auspicious occasion. In 2 days' time, there is a Ram Mandir being inaugurated by, it's a 500-year wait. And we discussed that yesterday with some people. Today we have very, very special guests. I mean, their books are very popular. The series of Bharat Gyan is very popular. Some of you may have guessed it, especially if you're from India. And some of you who have seen them earlier on our shows also guessed it. So let us welcome Sri D.K. Hari and Sri Hema Hari.
Namaste, Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram. No, as a couple, you have done a yeoman service or such a great service to the cause of Hindu culture, simply indescribable by words. For the benefit of students, so what is going to be the impact, before we start the deal, what is going to be the impact of Ram Mandir construction on the consciousness of Hindus globally?
Actually, I would like to first say that this is going to be a milestone. See, we have been writing on the historical Rama, and not only that, we've been working on the ancient timeline of the history of the Hindus, the Hindu civilization. And Rama and Krishna, Lord Rama and Lord Krishna figure very prominently. Now with the building of this temple, the impact, the fundamental thing that this step is achieving is threefold. One, it is clearly acknowledging the historicity aspect of Lord Ram, because you are building a temple at his birthplace. So you're acknowledging his birth and his historicity thereby with respect to that. You're also pegging and connecting that historicity with the geography, because you're building it in Ayodhya as well, which is his birthplace. And the third thing, you're also acknowledging his divinity, that he was an avatar, an incarnation of the divine, supreme divine, because you're building it as a temple where people can go and pray and surrender to him, enjoy, show their affection, devotion. So three things are being accomplished with this one construct that is going to come up very soon.
So it is the Bhumi Pujan that's coming up now, and hopefully in the next couple of years the temple will rise up, take shape, and it will sort of be a place for all of us to sort of value, cherish, not just the Vigraha, the Murti of Rama, Ram Lalla as he is fondly called in Ayodhya, the baby Rama, Ram Lalla. More importantly, for the Guna that Rama stands for. Why is Rama venerated over 7,000 years now? Continuously, not just in the land that the kingdom that he ruled, Kosala, but not just in the land of Bharata, but all over the world. Wherever Hindus are, all over the world, be it in the Americas or the West Indies or Fiji or any Indonesia, wherever, all over the world, Thailand, wherever. That's because he was a Purusha Uttama, which is why we call Purushottama. We use the term only for Rama, Purushottama. That is Purusha, a person, Uttama, of a high order. So we use the term Purushottama for Rama. Why? That's a question. You don't use the term for anybody. You don't use it for Shiva or Krishna or anybody else so much, or Varaha or Parashurama. You don't use the term Purushottama. It's specifically meant only for Rama. There's a reason for it. Very specific. That is, every person has got qualities in his character, which you call as Guna. G-U-N-A, Guna, which just comes from the Gun. Character, qualities. The character and qualities that Rama exhibited in his life by action. He didn't say it anywhere, but by action he exhibited as 16 qualities, which makes him an ideal person, a person to whom you look up to for all these qualities. And we as normal human beings, even if we get even 8 or 10 of those 16 qualities, we are going to be very elevated, noble persons. Whereas here this person Rama had exhibited in his life the 16 qualities, we explained the 16, we listed out the 16 qualities and explained it in our book Ayodhya, War and Peace. That's one. And how do we know about the 16 qualities is a key point. When Valmiki was earlier, in his earlier form, before he became a Rishi, he was Ratnakar, highway robber. And from there, he became Valmiki. After he became Valmiki, he met Narada one day, Sage Narada, Rishi Narada, and asked Sage Narada a question. If you want, we can share the slide so people can view it also.
Yes.
I'll first show the 16 qualities of Rama.
Can you see the slide?
Yes.
Look at the 16 qualities that Rama is known by, which is what he is famous for.
And ideally, what Valmiki says is any human being, the maximum qualities that can be exhibited by a human being are these 16. And he is the only personage who is known to have exhibited all these in his human form. He's the only human form who is known to have exhibited all these 16 qualities, which is why he gets the name Purusha Uttama. And we've listed all of them. And like Hari was just saying, it is an interesting interesting conversation between Valmiki and Narad Muni. And he asks, who really is that person in this present world during his times?
That is 7,000 years back.
Who is principled and also a potential one, a conscientious one, a redeemer, and also a truth teller and self-determined in his deed. And so then Narada says, the only person who fits this description and much more, and who is a complete form of human form, is none other than Lord Ram. So please write about him. And that's how he starts Valmiki Ramayana.
That's all. And that's why he calls him Purusha Uttama, and he also calls him as Maryada Purushottam. That's why the two words are there only for Rama. And actually, when Valmiki asks Narada, he asks, is there any person either in the present or in the past? For which Narada replies, why worry about the past? We have a person now in the present who has these qualities. So it is to bring out these qualities that Valmiki penned the Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana, which was a canvas to bring out the 16 qualities. Because his focus was not the Charitra of Rama, that is also there, but it's a secondary focus. The primary one was to bring out 16 qualities of Rama, which is why he is endeared to everybody. You have to show the 16.
Yeah, I did. I showed the 16. And this temple will actually reinforce this message. So now that, we have been so consciously made aware of Rama, his historicity, his divinity. So, and also there have been so many serials. The communication medium has really taken Rama to everybody. Every time now we go to Ayodhya and this beautiful temple, we will be able to relive this entire journey of Rama and remember all the qualities that we should aspire for.
Now, thank you so much for showing those slides and giving that information. So Bhagavad Gita chapter 15 also says Purushottam Yoga, and in the beginning of Mahabharata, Krishna Dwapaya Vyas says Krishna is a Purna Purushottam Bhagavan also. So I think the Purushottam word is being used for all Vishnu incarnations.
Yes,
for
true.
Bhagavan Ram is especially used as Maryada Purushottam, because he is a upholder of Maryada or etiquette of ideal life.
There's a very interesting aspect actually between Ram and Krishna's Purnata, that is completeness. Ram is used as completeness in a human form. So
Exactly.
because
That's
when
why
he
16
was,
qualities, because
yes,
Vishnu's completeness is 64 qualities.
yes, and whereas Krishna in his avatar, he was aware of his avatar as a descent of the supreme consciousness,
Yeah.
and so he is a completeness in a different sense as well.
Purn Purushottam. And
Each have uniqueness.
and also so anyway, for viewers, let me get back to the historicity where Bhagwan Ram's in the somebody was Nilesh Oak was there on the show, and he was showing us some information. But needless, you have your own research, and we want to know how Bhagwan Ramayana was spread. Ramayana was spread. The knowledge of Ramayana was there in South America as well as in Europe. I think that section also you have covered. You briefly showed that in your book, and I've got your book, so I was reading that. That was very interesting. That how South Americans also knew about Ramayana way before it happened. And yesterday I was speaking to someone. Ramayana actually happened in the 24th Treta Yuga, according to the timelines of Brahma's calculation, which is 24th Treta Yuga, which is, if you calculate, materially, I don't want to confuse my viewers, but goes back to 17 million years. And people may question me for that, and you are the experts there. But without going into the dates, let's focus on the character and how Ram has been influential even in South America. Uh, I can tell you, for the temple of Bhagwan Ram, I am getting so many emails from countries which I have now been to: Ecuador, Peru, and Brazil. Brazil I've been many times, but Chile, Argentina, where people are flying to India for this inauguration. They must be already landed in Delhi right now, and people from Guyana, Trinidad, Tobago already are going. How come so much enthusiasm? What is Ram's connection to all these lands? Ireland is sending the biggest contingent of European devotees, and so how come there is so much of enthusiasm? I,
First, interestingly, if we are looking at the connect, we tend to say from east to west, right? And in this east, the America would be included in the east than the west, because the connection between India and Americas, ancient Americas, for India, Americas was on its east, because the approach was through the Pacific and not through the Atlantic. So it was through the Southeast Asian islands and many more other islands which were
all the
there.
Polynesia,
Polynesian,
Tahiti, Micronesia, and the Hawaii Islands. That's how the ships from India reached the Central Americas of those days. What we call as Mesoamerica also. You call it different names, Central Americas. Let's keep a common name. So that's how they reached for many millennia. It was not just a one-off ship, or you went there and said, I found the land, Eureka, I found the land. It was a continuous journey between the land of Rama, okay, especially there all the way up to Central Americas, covering all these islands, Fiji to Micronesia, Polynesia.
So along with all those travels, the stories, the legends of Rama has also traveled. And not just legends of Rama, but it is also the lineage. I mean, there are obviously over time, the descent, the dynasty of Rama, there are many people who are traceable within India. There are, the lineage can be traced up to Korea as well. The Kim dynasty of Korea is traced to a princess from Ayodhya who has traveled there.
First, we'll show you the slide about how the travel from Bharatavarsha happened over the seas. It was a continuous travel. We'll show it in the capsule. We'll show you that, so that sets the stage, because people will start wondering, our colleagues who are seeing this, we will be wondering, how was the travel possible? So we'll show you some slide as to how the travel really happened. And incidentally, we'll cut out all these things. Here's a person by name Miles Poindexter. He was a former US ambassador to Mexico. He's written about the connect between the civilization of India with the how the ships went from India, especially from Utkala, that is Odisha, which was part of the Kosala kingdom of Rama, which was called Dakshina Kosala in those days. From there, how the ships went through Southeast Asian islands to the Micronesia, Polynesia, Tahiti islands, and from there on to the Hawaii islands, and from there on to Central Americas. And there on they could go to any part of America, any part of the west coast of Americas. That was the connect.
Can you click on the next button so that we can see the other things you're saying? Yes, go ahead.
Are
Yes.
you seeing the slide now?
Yes.
Did you see the ship go?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Now we can see the map.
No, before that you could not see it, is it?
No.
No,
We'll just
we'll show it again. We'll show it again for you. Can you see it now, please?
Yes. Now.
Okay, this is
Yes. Point. We can see Miles Poindexter.
Yeah,
he was
now
the-
you would see the map, right?
Yeah. Now we see a map, and I can see the ship
This is the
moving
ship
from
moving.
India. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, from Utkala
Actually, it goes from
Odisha.
Odisha, Utkala, which is called Dakshina Kosala in those days.
That is southern part of the Kosala kingdom. The Kosala kingdom of Rama, see, Ayodhya was the capital, but the Kosala kingdom stretched from even beyond north of Ayodhya to up to Utkala, which
So-
was the southern part.
So from here, see, they come to the Southeast Asia islands, they come to Micronesia, Polynesia, and finally come up to the west coast of Americas. So that was the way of travel. And this
And that's
land
why
was
he
called
said-
Shanti Sagar. This was called Shanti Sagar in the Puranic legends and all the legends.
Because
of
it is very easy to cross, much easier than Atlantic Ocean.
Yes. And the
And-
Shanti Sagar came to be called Shanti is peace. From peace comes pacify. From pacify comes Pacific.
Look at the connect in the name itself. You know, Pacific and Shanti Sagar as how the Hindu civilization has seen and used these seas widely. Even you can even get that from the name, the Tahiti Islands, incidentally. In the local language, it is a form of, the word is pronounced as Otaiti. That's how, I mean, as close as we can say. I'm sure the locals will have a better pronunciation, but it matches so well with the Indian word Atiti. In Indian languages, we use the word Atiti, meaning guest, visitor. So these were all these small islands where the stopping transit points for these ships that were going back and forth between India and Americas, ancient Americas.
So these were the Tahiti Islands where all the ships came by. And as I said, it comes from the word Atiti very clearly. Okay, you can see that.
Yes, we can see that. Yes.
Good. So it was a fairly large stretch of islands for all these ships to go through. It was one language that was spoken there, and it was the Tahitian language.
Wow. And then they moved, and then they were in the open sea after that.
Yes, after
Yes,
that.
after that. And interestingly, you find that the script, you find evidences of scripts there which match the script that was found in the Indus Valley, Harappan civilization. It was a script, yeah, there it is, the script, I think.
Look at the script here. The Harappan script of Indus Valley and the Tahiti script. It's called the Rongo Rongo tablet of Mamari. Look at the script here.
Can you click on it so that we can see, or press next button?
We'll leave it for some time. There is another
I'll show you.
slide where it is more detailed.
If you click on the space button, then the next slide will come.
I'll
Yes.
show you the slides.
Yes. Go ahead. Before that, you see the Harappan script. Before that.
Here is the Harappan script. Here's the Rongo Rongo script.
Yes.
the
Indus
shape.
Valley. Yeah, very similar. Very similar. Can you go back to the earlier slide? You had one more thing there. Yeah, now you go back. Harman, you're clicking on something and okay.
That speaks about there's a connect, and instantly we'll show you a short film as to how this idea travel of Hanuman is very popular in Central Americas.
Yes, very popular.
I'll show you a short film on Hanuman, how he so, and there's a festival called Ramasitwa that was famous with the Mayans and Aztec Incas.
I'll show the Ram Sitwa first before I go to the Hanuman. One moment. Yes.
This is all in our book it's available on Kindle for all to read.
So this is, pointed out by Orientalist of British India, Sir William Jones. And he says, remnants of the Mayan civilization in the story, there are stories of Rama and Sita. The ideal Ram Sita here, how they are called as the ideal Mayan couple. Oops. Here. And he writes about it. I'll read out. Rama is represented as a descendant from the sun, as the husband of Sita, and the son of a princess named Kausalya. It is very remarkable that Peruvians now, he's talking about the Peruvians, whose Incas boasted of the same descent, styled their greatest festival Rama Sitwa, from which we may suppose that South America was peopled by the same race who imported into the farthest parts of Asia the rites and the fabulous history of Rama. So
and this was about 3,000, 4,000 years ago of the Peruvian civilization of the Mayan, Inca, Aztecs. Isn't it amazing? You get that?
Amazing.
I'll just show you a small film on the Hanuman story.
Which we made about Hanuman is so popular in these parts.
It's just a short, I'll have to do a share of the audio. Just one moment.
Lord Hanuman, the long-jawed. Hanuman is one of the most popular divinities across India, worshipped by millions for his intelligence, strength, devotion, faith, and courage. Hanuman, as the name suggests in Sanskrit language, is a person with a long jaw. Hanuman is depicted as a human with a protruding jaw which resembles that of a monkey. Hanuman is regarded as Vayuputra, or the son of the wind divinity. He is also called Maruti, the son of Marut, the divinity for a special type of spatial wind. The image and story of Echil in the Aztec legends is similar to that of Hanuman of the Indian legend. The legends mentioned Echil as the son of wind. The same legend further goes on to state that it is his breath that moves the sun. In the Indian legend of Hanuman too, there is an interesting anecdote of Hanuman flying towards the sun to eat it. A statue was found while excavating for a subway station in Mexico City and reported to the National Geographic magazine in December 1990. This figure of a human with a long jaw face was excavated in Mexico too. In both cases, a prominent jaw protrusion can be seen. The ancient Indians were master navigators with huge ships in which they traveled the high seas frequently. People from India and Ayodhya.
So this is about Hanuman, and
we have another short film which you can show you. It's all in our YouTube channel for all to watch. All these films.
Through the ages, through civilizations, Lord Ram and Ayodhya have not only been popular for the people of India, but have also been inspirational for people across the world. In Korea, old records Sometimes refer to Ayodhya as Ayudha or Ajotwa, a distant land. According to Samyuk Yusa, the ancient historic records of Korea, Queen Hyo or Hu, wife of legendary King Suro, who founded the Gharak kingdom, was born as Princess Suriratna of Ayodhya. N. Parthasarathi, the former Indian ambassador to Seoul, writes in his book Sri Ratna and Kim Suro, The Legend of an Indian Princess in Korea, that King Kim Suro was the first king and the entire Gharak clan, which constitutes more than about 2/3 of the population of Korea, are its descendants. In later years, India TV News, a respected news channel in India, reported that an analysis of DNA samples taken from the site of two royal Gaya tombs in 2004 in Gimhae, South Yongsan province, confirms that there is a generic link between the Korean ethnic group and certain ethnic groups in India. But there's more. Sir William Jones, who was a Supreme Court judge under the British East India Company, found in the year 1786 the imprints of the stories of Rama and Sita in the remnants of the Mayan civilization. His quote, which appeared in the Asiatic Researchers, Volume 1, page 426, reads, "The ancient Indians were master navigators with huge ships, in which they traveled the high seas frequently. The people from India."
I think most of this information is hidden from the world, that Indians were master navigators.
And it's not just hidden from the world alone. I think all of us have not gone beyond exploring beyond India Southeast Asia connect. We have stopped with similarities with Southeast Asia because we have always, in the modern world, America is to the west of India. So we have never seen America as a continuity of the Eastern Connect. And there you see so many similarities. You know, we have a beautiful compilation of pyramids all the way from ancient Americas through all these lands. Actually, those are the very telltale signs for the Indo-American Connect. The Indo-American Connect, very sadly, has not been explored. And if we start focusing from the East, it really opens up our eyes substantially.
No, the Arabic politics has always attracted us towards the West. I think that has been the problem in the modern times, because because they wanted to make themselves relevant. So by hook or crook, they have tried to get our attention. And I think the Look East policy of India is is kind of correcting that misconception. And what you said makes perfectly sense, because the Pacific Ocean or Prashant Mahasagar is a very calm ocean. You can sail on it. There are hardly any hurricanes, or even though all the hurricanes rise from there, mostly Atlantic, not from Pacific. No hurricanes come from Pacific, hardly. And rarely in Chile it affects. But even when I travel to India, I go San Diego, Tokyo, and India. So that's a better flight for me than to go via the west. By the east.
The ancients had traversed the seas and they aptly named it as Shanti Sagar, Shanti Mahasagar. See, it's so apt. That's one. Similarly, you have in Southeast Asia also, you have the spread of the story of Rama, which we can show you. It's in Southeast Asia. It's in Egypt also. Just show you some slides of Southeast Asia, Egypt. For example, if you look at Thailand.
You want to show the slide or the film? Egypt.
You show the film. You show this film is there. You can see it. It's also there in a book. You can show you the film as well. So the same film. There's an Egypt-Turkey connection. We'll show you
and Turkey. Through the ages and civilizations, Lord Rama and Ayodhya have not only been popular for the people of India, but have also been inspirational for people across the world. Ram of Ayodhya belonged to Suryavansh or the Solar dynasty. Interestingly, the Ramses of Egypt also belonged to Solar dynasty and also took on the name Ram. The original Egyptian name of the pharaohs in their heliographic language, devoid of vowels, was RMS, which sounds like Ramasa, similar to our Ram. In Turkey, Ram was its local name. The name of the 8th king Dasharatha bears uncanny similarity to the name of Rama's father, Dasaratha. The other kings also have the prefix or suffix of son in their name, reflecting a possible connection to the Solar dynasty or Suryavansh. Famous German archaeologist Hugo Winkler had excavated thousands of cuneiform tablets from central Anatolia region of Turkey. The tablet Bogaskoy inscription speaks of a peace treaty between the two neighboring kingdoms, the Mitanni and the Hittites, called the Treaty of Cappadocia. The text of the tablet reads that this treaty between the Hittites and Mitanni was being witnessed by Varuna, Mitra, Indra and Nasatya. This implies that the Hittites and the Mitanni, which were tribes of ancient Turkey, held Varuna, Mitra, Indra and Nasatya as divinities of high esteem to be invoked before performing important deeds. In the Indian tradition too, there are names of divinities right from Vedic times. Varuna and Mitra stand for the rains and the sun. Indra is considered as the chief of all divinities. Nasatya is one of the twins in the Ashwini twins who stand for good health and well-being. Arnold Toynbee, British historian and thinker, in his well-researched book Mankind and Mother Earth, shows the path of migration of people 4,000 years ago from India and the land of language Samskrita to West Asia. The ancient Indians were master navigators.
So with this we see the spread of the ideals of Rama all over the world. And for this to happen, he genuinely, apart from defeating Ravana as a king, he had these qualities, this guna, which made him stand out as a person. For his name and fame and spread to have across the oceans, across centuries, across millennia. That is the beauty of the whole thing.
No, thank you so much for showing these slides. I think for many of the viewers, this is the first time they are seeing it, and their first time they are seeing how is it possible, because the modern textbooks and the modern historians don't tell the truth. And so sometimes the independent researchers who are deeply ingrained in the culture, like Sri D.K. Hari and Hema Hari and Sathology teams, we are here to say what academics won't say, because their salaries will be affected and their research dollars will be affected. That's the main problem. That's why they can't say the truth. They have to toe the line which their bosses had set, and whether it's a leftist boss or a communist boss, it doesn't matter. So I challenge all these universities to debunk us and tell us if we are wrong, or accept what we say. But you cannot play on the side and keep getting fat salaries for doing nothing for the human society. So thank you for this exciting show.
One small thing, we like to say one thing before we end.
Yeah.
Being the occasion of Rama's Bhumi Pujan, we thought we can even wear in our dress today. If you can see the dress.
I must show you this. That's the reason I wore this sari.
See, look at the sari.
Look at how all we celebrate Ram. See, this is a beautiful, jari work with
Jari's gold lace sari in silk, Indian silk, which is famous. Look at the story of whole of Ramayana is there in the sari.
Oh, look at that. Thank you. Thank you.
Kanchipuram silk. And look, all civilizations. And today it is alive in India, but in the hearts of everybody, he is, celebrated in all forms of art and poetry, visual, then oral and oral, everything.
Everything. So poetry to saris and the drapes you see in the drapes. This is green because the way we show Krishna in dark blue, we normally show in paintings Rama in green. There's a particular color called Rama Pachai. So I'm also wearing that green shirt of Rama's color. And look at the green. This is in gold embroidery in the sari pallu, the pleat of the sari, which shows how the ethos of Rama is spread in ballads, legends, stories, paintings, tapestries, and drapes, which you drape yourself with. So the spread is wide geographically and in expression in each land.
So beautiful.
You put a very important point of Rama being a Durva grass color, which is the Durva grass color. We will touch upon it. Why Krishna is blue and Rama is green. I think that's a good topic to discuss sometime later. But today, thank you for the show. Our time is up from the organizers and producers. They've been pinging me for 5 minutes. But thank you all for having the patience. I cannot take any questions today because our time is up. But do send me a note. We'll have DK Harin Hemari come again and answer those questions. And one of the questions was why Krishna is blue and Ram is green. That was a question.
Most of these you've answered in our website. They can go see it there in Bharat Gyan website.
BHARATHGYAN.com. So please go and visit there. And if you have any questions, you can always ask them directly. And so please watching Saptology channel. We keep debunking mythology, and we want the especially American academic authors who talk about Hindu spirituality or Hindu studies answer our questions and challenge us. We are challenging them, so accept our challenge. Thank you and namaskar.